So speaking of design, we've been speaking of design now for quite some time, but design has to change, says Sami Niemelä from Helsinki. He's an interaction designer, he's founder of the design studio Nordkapp, and he's focusing there on rethinking the products and rethinking the services and innovating new services and designing them in a new way. And he says exactly that. When everything changes, the take on design has to change as well. And how that is going to look, he will explain now. Sami, the stage is yours.
Thank you. Hello, Next. Hello, Hamburg. Just give me a sec. I'll get my rig in order here. Just a second. There we go. So, hello. My name is Sami. I'm a designer. So I've been called many names during the past years. I've been basically running my own company for the past 8 years with a couple of other talented designers. Before that, I worked at Nokia at the Nokia Design Inside Innovation Center in Helsinki and London, and I've been doing a lot of stuff. Pretty much any media out there, I've at least tried my hand on it. With Peter, actually, we're co-chairing NEXT15 in Helsinki next March. So this is a conference by Interaction Design Association, IXDA, and it's going to be pretty cool. So go check out the website and buy a ticket and come visit us in Helsinki. Just a bit of background. Nordkapp is a digital product design studio. So we try to rethink, innovate, and then design things pretty well. And we've done stuff like figuring out how election data looks like on social media. We've done a bit of gonzo interaction design on kind of like figuring out how would a car of the future work like. We've been doing a lot of financial technology, especially the consumer-facing stuff. So making your account balances visual, like with the pivot, and kind of making sense of your personal data out there. And this kind of ties nicely in the car industry as well. So we've had a really nice talk by the Nils from Audi yesterday, for example. So the whole car ecosystem is changing. So there's all kinds of new business there. And we are working with a Finnish company called Rightware, who builds the software that runs the dashboards of many cars right now already. And we've had our hand on kind of like writing our own briefs as well, and filling with stuff like urban informatics for the city of Helsinki. This Urban Flow Helsinki from a few years ago. And lately, we've also been kind of developing our own IP as well. So kind of like having our hand on actually designing products and figuring out, the introduction said like, the role of a consultancy is changing. And in a way, consultancy is dead and more alive than ever. But the way we do business is changing. And kind of like developing our own IP is one really important part of that. And fruits of that work will be out later this fall. We'll see about that then. Here I'm talking about kind of the space in between. So I'm really interested about the cracks, the seams, and kind of like the spaces, the little bits and pieces that exist between the consuming, producing, living, whatever, moving, all that. And most interesting stuff usually happens at the ground level, in the cracks between the so-called seamless experience. And also, disclaimer, I'm also an optimist, but you have to pick about the stuff you want to be optimistic about. You have to pick your battles, the stuff you kind of like want to acknowledge about. And let's go in that stuff next.
buttons. This machine just called me an asshole.
So this is a clip from Stephen King's Maximum Overdrive, a movie that came out nearly 30 years ago. It's a story about the world that goes wrong when a comet crashes into Earth, sprinkles some magic dust all over the world, and machines come alive. And of course they're evil. So, but it has a lot of this kind of human quirkiness, human factor of things that makes design, IoT, and everything very complicated, even still in 2015. So the future kind of snuck up on us. We suddenly have fridges. Yes, this is an internet fridge. Has a camera in it. And it's basically texting us, well, kind of like if we need more eggs and stuff like that. We're traveling inside giant cell phones, literally. Just a huge battery in the back, basically. World's largest taxi company has no fleet. One of the world's largest chain of hotels has no rooms. To roughly put, Airbnb in Helsinki has the same exact capacity of rooms than all of the hotel chains in the city combined. So there's a major disruption happening here. And we kind of like just beginning to see the change, right? So we are now growing 3D printed nerves with tubes, building cybernetic arms and stuff like that. Something weird happened there. Anyway. And we kind of like the things that we were told 5 years ago. You wouldn't download a car. You can now 3D print a damn automobile if you want to. The future's here already. And I would argue it's actually pretty damn evenly distributed in some points. And if you've ever shopped Kickstarter, you notice that tinkering is really easy, but consumer-grade hardware is really, really hard. So kind of Maltesian dilemma, so many products looking for a purpose right now. And it all basically ends up in a landfill after we forgot the charging cable at home and things like that. A lot of things from science fiction is here already. So, and they're kind of like infiltrating the everyday around us, right? So this means concept art for Blade Runner 1980 and Tesla UI from a couple of years ago already. So the car doesn't fly, but other than that, that's pretty much there. Google's automated car is kind of like it's a robot on wheels, but the form factor is still the same. It's kind of like it's a car. For many reasons, it looks familiar, feels familiar. It kind of like it's a Trojan horse for AI and robotics on our roads. And there's kind of like this parallax movement, different speeds between physical and digital. There's a theory in architecture called pace layering, which suggests that buildings can be divided on different layers based on how they develop. So basically, you can paint the walls of your room very easily. Changing a room, the wall order is a bit more difficult. Moving the house is super difficult. So this goes to stuff like cat videos. There's memes come and go. Mobile apps, they're a bit more steadier. Then there's business like Uber, which kind of like form slightly slower pace, but they're kind of like, they might be here to stay. We don't know yet. A lot of cities use urban co-planning, so kind of like co-creation with their citizens to figure out how to build better cities. And then there's the whole question of like sharing economy and lawmaking, that kind of stuff. And lower you go on the scale, actually slower the movement comes. So there's like these tectonic shifts in economy laws that kind of like might happen sooner than we expect, but at the moment they seem really, really slow. And we can also look into architecture when kind of trying to figure out what's going on here. One of my favorite things is kind of this, well, Finnish fathers of functionalism, Eliasar and Alvar Aalto talked about. So when you build things, you have to always look for the next larger context. So if you design a chair, you have to figure out the room you design for. If you design a building, you have to consider this, the urban scale, the urban city around that. And I'd say when we add digital to this stuff, you have to look kind of in the smaller context as well. So the micro and macro context, the human interactions behind that. And I've got news for you, especially if you're working in branding, advertising, communication, everything you know about web is breaking down. So internet is so much more or less about what it is anymore. It's more about where and how. So your brand, everything kind of like branding's been about for the last 30 years. It's kind of like it's being condensed into a chat box. This is a Get Magic, a service from the US, which basically is a human-to-human service. They get you anything that's legal, basically. So basically, your content strategy is about to fall into a hand to someone working really long hours and really, really lousy pay. And soon also, the stuff in our homes is kind of like already starting to talk back at us. This is a Ericsson concept video from a couple of years ago of a connected home, and I find this really interesting, kind of like how they kind of like just like really carelessly designed a vacuum cleaner and a couch with a tone of voice and really condescending kind of ideas like, sorry bro, can't do that. So is this something we really, really don't want? Currently, a lot of the perceived smartness is based on constant nagging, right? So there's a bunch of notifications on our screen, especially if you use Apple Watch, if you tried Google wearables, you'll notice that there's such an influx of notifications that kind of like just like try to get your attention without even thinking one bit what they're on about. This is an application called Lark. It's an activity tracker. And this is one of the several apps that kind of run dialogue with you on what you should do, how you should improve your lives. And they have no context whatsoever. So I basically just downloaded this a few months ago, just out of curiosity. It's connected to HealthKit, but nothing else. I don't track any of my eating, any of that stuff there. But it's kind of like, it's very chatty. It's like very high maintenance, it feels like. And every single application tries to be the one for you. Eventually you end up like on a 10, 15 of these applications which all demand your attention. It just doesn't feel right. Scott mentioned Facebook's M already, which is really interesting. A personal digital assistant inside Facebook Messenger that completes tasks and finds information on your behalf. And they actually stated that it's powered by artificial intelligence that's trained and supervised by people. So when you comply tasks with M, you have no idea if it's just the computer or a real person talking back at you. And there's something really, really interesting here. The most important thing about communication is basically the stuff that is not really said. And I've talked about yesterday about the artificial super intelligence. And this scene from Ex Machina is actually a really nice example of that.
What's your favorite color?
Red.
Lie.
Lie?
Yes. Lie.
Then what is my favorite color?
I don't know. But it isn't red.
Okay, I get it. I guess, seeing as I'm not 6, I don't really have a favorite color.
Better answer.
So the point an AI will pass the Turing test somewhere in the future is the point where it will also understand so much more than just the verbal communication. So someone mentioned yesterday already IBM listening the wheels of a train to figure out what's going on when they break. So an AI will be able to read every single thing of your body language way before it talks back at you. And that's something really, really interesting there. Because we are really close to the point where the actual, kind of like we as scientists will at some stage become the mouse inside the maze. And we don't even have to put an AI here for these principles. So most of experience design already deals with things that's kind of like beyond the UI. So not just like how it looks, how it works, but kind of like what are the anxieties, what's the situation, what are the motivation, and that kind of stuff. So you have to understand that really well in order to build systems that work. And along with like hundreds and hundreds of doomed products, we are starting to see things that actually make sense. So this is an AEG connected oven, which kind of like actually sounds really bad. But what it actually is that it's a tiny camera inside the oven with an iOS app. So now when you're making food, when you have a roast in your oven, you don't have to kind of like peek down to the hole, go to the kitchen, figure out, is it done already? You can have a look at the camera from your app. And this kind of like introduces really interesting notions on like the connected home. So again, the rephrase, Marcel, what if someone in the US starts to roast your food for you? What if someone hacks into this system? Can they start a fire, for example? And we have to remember every single thing we design is political now. So do not make an attempt to neglect the politics at all. Because the things we leave out from the stuff we do, they matter at least as much as the things we choose to keep in. Disney's Magic Band, it's been said, it's kind of like the press has said it, the kind of the masterpiece of wearable technology right now. For those who don't know, Magic Band is it's basically an RFID wristband and a system. It's $1 billion investment on building 100% curated theme park experience. So if you go to Disneyland, you buy tickets online, you get the band shipped for you at your home. They're individually named for each ticket holder. And when you go to Disneyland, you don't have to touch money at all, anywhere. So it's actually a really complex tracking system, which knows where you are, what you're going to do, what you plan to do. So if you go to a restaurant, you'll get your food on the plate the moment you get there, that kind of stuff. And oh, well. Makes you wonder, what are the implications of kind of like this similar transformation in the real world? As a curated theme park experience, this is really well done. It's kind of perfectly fine. You buy the tickets, you buy into the experience. But in the real world, you get like all of these black boxes that have pieces of code inside them. They might do things we are not aware of. Volkswagen has been mentioned a few times here already. This is kind of like the black box that's a blame. So there's a piece of code here which basically vanished 30% of their stock value and fired the CEO. So being ethical is not really a choice, but you have to be there. So it sounds very complicated for a designer. So how to prepare for that? What to do next? I believe the idea is to try to write your own briefs, really. So future is created by the ones who actually make stuff, who do things, who propose better ways of doing stuff. And you don't always need to build the fancy piece of connected hardware. Sometimes just like simple things are enough. So this is the Virgin Airlines. They've had a really nice fancy new website, and they basically made their ticket just a A4, which you can fold in your pocket. It has all the barcodes and whatever you need basically to get stuff done. So don't be afraid of stupid ideas. Sometimes the lowest, sketchiest way to do stuff might actually be the best one. And you have to separate innovation from invention. So as we very well learned, for example, from Nokia, being first is really hard. And the use of the fruits of the labor are being napped by someone who kind of like comes in much later stage, gets the consumer need and just wham, does the thing. There's a saying that every single consumer invention can be found in the academia about 10 years before it becomes a thing. And the winners will be the ones who actually provide the best consumer experience, not the first one. And iPhone did really change the world. So mobile first doesn't really exist anymore. It's just mobile. 60% of the 18 to 24-year-olds, millennials in the UK, say mobile is already the most important thing in their lives. It's personal, it's perfect. It has everything they need. Everything else is really extra. And the form of the mobile computer will evolve. But for now, before things like graphene, nanotech, whatnot, they really kick in, we are pretty set on the glowing rectangles. They will get thinner, they will get more powerful, but the form factor is here for now. And when you do things for this, quality is also a necessity. So there's so much noise out there, you have to really do things that matter. So this is saying that 90% of the perceived quality of a thing is actually made on the last 10% of the project, with the 90% of effort and 90% of budget. So execution is also, you have to just do things. Execution without direction is useless, but also bad execution to a brilliant idea can spoil a lot of things. And disruption it requires many things, luck, right timing, whatnot, but size is not one of them. So size is really good for sustaining something that exists already. But when you do new things, when you build new lean things, size actually can be a problem. And if we think about WhatsApp, they have like nearly 1 billion users, 50 engineers. Instagram was 13 people when they were bought by Facebook. And that's because the people we actually create value for is not the mass market. The mass market just comes in later on when everyone else has the thing already. So we have to aim for the kind of early adopters, early majority. They're all in for value. They're not for price. They're price sensitive. They're very sensitive to ethics, consumer and sustainability and things like that. But it's all about value for them. And I really like this idea of kintsukuroi. It's a Japanese art of repairing broken pottery with gold and silver. So it's all about embracing the brokenness of a thing. It's all about embracing the lived life of the thing you have. And I think that's what we should really apply to connected objects as well. So not try to create new things all the time, but complement the existing stuff. Kind of like make the world around us a bit smarter by adding bits and pieces there, not trying to redo the world, because remanufacturing the world is a catastrophe, sustainability-wise. And the internet basically is a gigantic multiplier to a lot of things. Yeah?
Wrap up.
2 slides. So there is and will be place for humans in the driver's seat. Anything can be software, will be, anything can be service, but you have to be there. You have to kind of like lead through that. This is a quote from a nice book by Jaron Lanier, Who Owns the Future? And it's kind of like, they're all human surgeons in that case, and predetermined, however, they will remain essential. The designers, humans, the human components are really hard, so they will remain there. Thank you very much.
And thank you, thank you.
We're sorry to be so very German today.